looks like we're all here. We'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Boy, we did good this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were together.
We're getting good at this Zooming.
We're ready to be a choir.
I wouldn't go that far. Okay. Everybody's had a chance to look at the agenda, I hope.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed with roll.
So just the comment that the minutes from November 24th aren't ready yet, so we'll table that one.
Okay.
I was gonna. Okay.
Otherwise, District 1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
and 5.
Yes.
Okay. We'll forego the approving of the minutes of the 24th meeting, and we'll move on to public comment. I don't know if there's anybody that would like to make a public comment. If not, John, are you on? Do a COVID update? There he is. Morning.
Morning, John.
How are you guys all doing this morning?
Good.
I don't have a lot new to state this morning. We put out a press release about some additional fatalities in Houston County recently, and I think you guys all saw that information as well. Very heartbreaking and sad news for us to share. I think the thing that we have kind of consistently shared our ongoing numbers as far as increases in numbers. It's occasionally brought up to me that the total number of cases that we have, it's one indicator of what's going on, but as of yesterday, we were at 713 cases since the beginning of the pandemic. I think the larger story isn't that, that 713 individuals who tested positive. Some of those tested positive last spring and have long since recovered. To me, the story is in the last month, over 450 of those 713 have happened, which indicates in Houston County, as we see across the state of Minnesota and across the upper Midwest, we're still experiencing a very significant spike and outbreak in the spread of COVID. I applaud the board for the efforts that they put forward with the letter that you approved last month. I think just we in public health continue to urge people in Houston County to take the virus seriously, especially now as the weather turns colder and as we have a tendency to congregate with the holidays. But obviously we watch these numbers every day, and they are not giving us reason for a whole lot of hope right now. Or at least hope in the near term. I shouldn't say no hope. The one area that is giving us a degree of hope is the development of vaccines. And I want to give some context to that as well. There's at least 3 different vaccines that are close to approval. Once those vaccines, one or more than one or all 3, are available, it isn't like we're going to have everybody vaccinated overnight. There's a kind of a tiered system of highest need for people who will be receiving the vaccine first. That would include people in long-term care facilities, staff that are assisting those folks, frontline staff and healthcare providers, first responders, law enforcement. Those kinds of folks are in the first group of folks that will be given the vaccine, since they are frequently in contact with people who would be contagious. We're in the process of working with the state as well as our partners across the river in how we can coordinate our efforts in helping people in Houston County get vaccinated. I'm guessing probably at your next meeting we'll have more information, more specific information on kind of a little more meat on the bone as far as planning. But a lot of that work is being done now with our public health folks locally, as well as with the state of Minnesota and our partners across the river.
Well, the state is the ones that are going to be deciding who gets what first, right?
Yeah, the state kind of has a tiered setup as far as highest priority. Where we're working with partners across the river is, they have clinics also in Houston County, and we have some challenges depending on what kind of vaccine it is as far as storage and mass dispensing. And so we're working out some agreements there that hopefully that we can use the strength of partnership that we have there.
Jack?
I guess you pretty much answered the question, but the initial vaccine that was announced, unless you're close to Antarctica, storage is an issue. And I wonder, has the state reached out at all on that issue?
They're scrambling like everybody else, and there isn't a lot of places, primarily from what I've learned, primary healthcare providers may have that ultra cold storage. That's part of our reason for working with partners across the river on that. But yeah, I mean, if you've got to store something at -90 and you're getting it in 1,000 dose lots, we got to be careful that we're not taking vaccine that we can't distribute before it goes bad. So there's certain nuances, obviously, with that specific vaccine that are different than others. And so, but there's a whole lot of logistical issues with any vaccine. And so.
And not all vaccines need to be under ultra cold storage.
No, one of the three that you've probably heard the most about would require that ultra cold storage.
Right.
But we don't know which will come first and which the state will distribute. And, that's some of the questions that we have. It's like, okay, so if you have this that's going to require that type of storage or that type of capacity, are you considering sending that to larger population centers and something that doesn't require that to other places? But I think they don't have an answer either, because they don't know which one's going to come out of the chute first. And so we're working with our folks or with our partners at MDH, and also with regional partners and also our partners across the river. We're very unique in having virtually all of our residents seek medical care outside of the state. And so we talk about that a lot, and it's had it's posed a number of different challenges for us in this pandemic, but it certainly isn't an indication that our partners across the river are difficult to work with. They've been great. And so we will benefit from those long-term partnerships that far predate my time here.
John, I want to ask you, I talked to somebody this week that said his wife had COVID, tested positive. He got sick, but he never went in to be tested. So we must have a lot of cases out there, positive cases, that we don't even know about officially.
I would guess that you're exactly right. In a situation like that, I would strongly encourage that individual to to
No,
get
they
a
didn't.
COVID test.
Yeah.
Because, not only for their own health, because, different people's body makeup respond to COVID very differently. I heard of a story of, a relatively young parent who both parents had COVID. One was kind of what you hear of that age group. It's kind of cold symptoms and flu. The husband in this situation didn't fare as well, ended up on a ventilator and ended up passing away. And so, why is that? They live in the same household. They have kind of the same exposure. I think it just indicates, it's not scientific, it's one case, anecdotal, but it shows that different people's body responds differently.
Immune system. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would just strongly urge anybody who's saying that, it's like that's at the heart of the guidance. If you're sick, stay home. If you have
Right.
COVID related symptoms, get a test. They're getting much easier. You don't even have to leave your home now. You can go online and get a test and send it in, and those results are finally flowing really, really well.
So
I also got another question about people that have had it. Do they need to get the vaccine?
I don't have a clear answer on that.
Okay.
You hear all over the map that if somebody's had it, there's people who say, well, if I've had it, I can never get it again. I don't know the science on that, and I'm guessing that will be part of the guidance that we're receiving as it relates to the mass dispensing of vaccines.
I also had another question saying, do I need to wear a mask anymore? I'm not contagious.
I would say yes, because we just don't know. We don't know how long people shed the virus. I think it's interesting that a large healthcare system in South Dakota, one that I'm pretty familiar with, having previously lived in Bemidji, where Sanford had a large presence, their CEO kind of took a stance saying, I had COVID, so I'm not going to wear a mask, and he's no longer employed by Sanford. I think, I don't know how else to say it. I feel like what public health is asking the community to do is a small thing, and it's not that intrusive, and it can make a dramatic difference in the spread of COVID, and especially how that will impact people who are vulnerable. And I don't understand why if somebody is able to protect people who are otherwise vulnerable to a very serious disease through a small effort on your part, why people have a difficult time doing that.
Yeah. Thank you. At least I have something to tell them, because I do encourage them to get tested, but there's a lot of people that say, no,
Mhm.
I'm over it. Yeah.
We all have people like that in our lives. I've got people like that in my family.
Mhm.
And it's like,
I know.
watching the news account of somebody who's refusing to wear a mask, and they're like, yeah, you go, and I'm like, why? I don't understand that. Why?
Yeah.
It's such a small thing to ask. And it concerns me that this season, this fall and through the winter, is going to be very difficult for a lot of places and a lot of people, and it doesn't have to be. I think that's the
Right.
bottom. It doesn't have to be.
well,
Yeah.
just for a sake of argument, and this is where I was afraid this is all going to go, but your example of that person getting fired for that comment, is this where we're going to? I mean,
Well, I think with his situation is he's the CEO of a large regional healthcare provider. It probably isn't sending the right message if he's saying, look, you don't have to do this.
oh, I get that, but I mean, now we're going to start firing people for not doing
Well, if I was
things.
out there doing that, saying this is I'm speaking not just as John Pugliese, I'm speaking as also your public health official in Houston County. You would be right to say, hey, you might want to think about what you're saying or what you're posting, because you represent somebody, a larger constituency than just yourself.
So on the test, how much have they increased in the last month? Quite a bit, I assume.
The tests have increased. I think, I'm not sure where you're going with that. A lot of
I
times,
just the number of tests I assume have gone up quite a bit too. I would think.
yes. But the percentage of positive tests has also gone up.
Yeah, it's at 6.5, isn't it?
Yeah, and some of
It
those
was. Go ahead.
some of those numbers too. We get that data from MDH, and a positivity rate that's posted that we post on a weekly basis is the positivity rate for the whole experience here. We also are working with schools and others in the community on weekly rolling averages, and those positivity rates that we cited in your letter are much higher. And so if you look at all the way back to the beginning of the pandemic and do the math on that across all these many weeks, that positivity rate has creeped up because it's gone up dramatically in the most recent weeks.
Yeah, the positivity rate in 11/16 was 6.0 or 6%,
Mhm.
and then it's gone to 6.5 the way it looks.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you look at that 2-week period, it's probably I don't have that data in front of me, but it's much higher for that smaller period of time. So we are testing a lot more people, but a lot more people are testing positive.
And there's multiple. I mean, there's people that are getting tested multiple times too, aren't there?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And that's in the number too, isn't it?
it's in the positivity number, because if somebody's taken 10 tests over the period of this time, and they all came out negative, that affects that as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the data on this you can really get very complex in it. It's very difficult to maintain that data. That's why we look also at those weekly rolling averages, because that gives us more of a look at what's happening right now. But with all those additional factors of it being a look over many weeks, and the fact that plenty of people have taken multiple tests, the fact that percentage is going up indicates that it supports the fact that there's a lot of very rapid growth going on right now.
Well, it's I see the new cases have gone down from 2 weeks ago.
That's a good thing.
Yep.
Yeah, and then the number of active cases, at least this week, is probably a little bit affected by the testing was closed on Thursday, Friday last week, so there'll probably be a little bit of a wave in it.
I think you're right, Jeff, and I think we've seen throughout this that there tends to be kind of plateaus, if you will, and I don't know exactly. I wish I could come up with why that is. I think I've said before to the board that it's odd to me that we'll see a significant spike in Houston County, but we're not seeing it in Fillmore, and then Fillmore sees a significant spike, but we're not seeing it in Houston. I just wonder if it's kind of the proximity of when people are taking tests. Our populations are similar, and our overall numbers are similar, but we haven't followed a path like this. It's been kind of up and down, but the trajectory that we're on right now is pretty steep upward.
Thank you.
Anybody got anything else? Jack?
I would just mention that you probably saw that a high school student in Madison just died from COVID, which again, I guess shows the volatility or the randomness. I mean, you think that's a non-vulnerable population, and bingo. So just a lot of unknowns out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think random is the perfect word. It's just, I wish it was more predictable, because then our response could be a lot more precise.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Yeah, just another comment on testing. The online testing, quick and easy. They come in the mail quickly. It's a quick Zoom call. If you can do a Zoom meeting, you can Zoom and take the test, and drop and ship. So we just
So-
did a batch of them, so it worked pretty slick.
Is that a saliva test then? or-
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Okay.
They do a Zoom and they watch you spit into it and make sure that
It's enough.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's kind of a chain of custody so that there's somebody that says, yeah, this test tube is, I watched them do that and seal it and do what is necessary.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda.
Yeah, very small one today. This claims and 4 grants for the snowmobile trail programs. Just approving the agreements for 2021.
Bob?
Just- One question with regard to those grants. Why is the one so much bigger than the others? I mean, do they got twice as much trail?
They got more miles.
Okay. Just seemed like twice as much as the other one. Okay. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
For any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed with roll call.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yeah.
and District 5.
Yes.
On that note, we got it too late to get on the consent agenda, so it'll be on for the next meeting. But we did receive a retirement notice from Doug Twite in the highway shop, and worth recognizing him for 43 years of county service. And so I'll mention it this week, and we'll mention it the next time when we make it official. But
Yeah.
share that news with you.
Brian brought it up at committee this morning too. He actually has 44 years, but the first year was with a work group program. And so he didn't officially do it until the next year. It's 1978.
Oh, well,
A lot of experience there.
absolutely.
Yep.
Hard to replace.
Okay, we'll move on to action items. Action item number 1, consider approving bid package 2 for the highway shop project. Brian, you want to kind of go through this with us, or?
I can bring up the
Yeah, so
2 tabs here.
we bid out, or Weezer Brothers bid out bid package 2. Bids came back last week. They were due last week, Tuesday. Weezer compiled the bid results. I believe there was 28 or 30 categories. 2 categories did not get any bidders. Recommendation at this point is to table approval of 2 categories and then approve the rest of the low bids. So going through this bid results sheet, category 2A, there wasn't enough detail on the previous studies to get a real good number on what hazardous materials would be. So essentially within the budget, there's just a placeholder for some money for abatement for that, but that wasn't really bid out for hazardous materials. Asphalt paving, we had 1 bidder for that. That came in pretty substantially over our Weezer's estimate for that. Recommendation at this time is to table the approval of that. We're going to go back and look to see if we can maybe reduce some of the asphalt paving, or if there's a better option, better solution, maybe looking at concrete or other type of something else we can do to get that cost down. So we do not want approval of 32A today. 32B for the precast concrete or precast divider panels from Alice Concrete. That's dividers panels for some sections to have some stockpile material on site along with within the hoop buildings. So recommendation is to approve them. 32C for the fencing. 4 bidders on that one. The recommendation is to approve the low bid Century Fence. They do a lot of fencing in this area, so to recommend that approval. 3A, the cast in place concrete. 2 bidders with that. Weezer was the low bid on that, so recommend approval there. Precast wall panels, 2 bidders, and again, recommend the low bid of Alice Concrete. Hollow core plank, no bidders on that one. This is for the above the entryways and the wash bays, so no bidders on that. We're going to either need to go back and rebid or go out for quotes on that one. So nothing to approve today, but we'll need to come back on that one in the future. Masonry, so 3 bidders on that. Recommended the low bid. Weezer's worked with them quite a bit in the past. Metal fabrication, this is for miscellaneous small metal items. 1 bidder recommended to approve hiring them for that work.
I just wanted to reiterate on 3A on the cast in place concrete, Brian. Is my understanding is right, on that 716,000 bid, 125 of that was for the Hoop Foundation, correct?
Yeah, so that has 125,000 for Hoop Foundation allowance.
Right.
So, that could go up or down. Hopefully down.
Yep.
It also has 30,000 in there for thawing the ground for an allowance, depending on how timing of everything with winter. And it has 10,000 miscellaneous allowance built into that as well. So there are some allowances for over under potential for some changes. So
Yep. Now you can go.
okay.
Anybody? Yep.
Yeah, 6A carpentry, again, no bidders on that one. 6B plastic laminate, casework, this is for the countertops in different areas, so recommend the low bid. 7A, this is for some flat roofing and some sheet metal flashing. Recommended low bid on that for Winona Heat and Vent. 8A, doors, frames, hardware. 2 bidders, recommend low bid. 8B, aluminum windows, Glass Service Center of La Crosse is the only bid we received on that. Again, that number appears to be a good number, so we recommend approval of that. 8C, sectional doors. 7 Rivers Overhead is the low bid there, so recommended to approve it with them. Metal stud framing, Weezer Brothers is the low bid. So recommended approval with them. Acoustical ceilings, so there's 6 bidders on this one. Competitive bids, recommend the low bid. Twin Cities Acoustics, Weezer Brothers say even though they're out of New Hope, Minnesota, they have a lot of employees that do live and work in this area. 9C carpet and flooring, 1 bid. Again, that falls within the estimate area, so recommend their approval. The tile, 2 bids, recommend approval of the low bid. Concrete polishing, so we have 6 bidders. The low bid was Windsor Company out of St. Paul. Recommend to withhold approval on that today, just so we can do some background checking on them. Weezer has not worked with them. No one on the committee has used them before, so I want to just do some reference checks. So at this time, withhold approval on that, then we can come back in a week or two and recommending approval on that one. Painting, high performance coating is the only bid on that, so recommend approval. Again, falls within the estimate. Special 10A specialties. This one is the just want to make sure
That was the,
It has some minor specialty items in there. I can't
They have
remember.
everything from fire extinguishers to other random accessories, really.
oh, it was like for the bathrooms too, wasn't it? Like for towel dispensaries and stuff
Yeah.
like,
Nope,
Yeah,
the
soap
suspension, that type of
dispensers.
stuff was ultimately got pulled out. So, but yes, Jeff is right. This has like the fire extinguishers and the minor fixtures or holdings. So it's a small dollar amount. There's not a whole lot in that category. It's all stuff that the Weezer says we need to have. So they are recommending approval of that one to the low bid. Wall and door protection. This is essentially like the corner strips and minor protection like that.
yeah, bumpers.
Yeah. So recommending approving the low bid. Lockers. So we got 6 bidders on that. So recommending approval of the low bid on that. Window blinds, no bids on that. We'll need to come back and either quote or bid that out or decide what we're going to do with that in the future. The metal building erection, 1 bid from Weezer, recommend that approval. Fabric covered steel frame structure. So this is the above ground portion of the hoop building or buildings. We had 3 bids recommending Greystone. At this point, Weezer's going to go back and do some cost estimating. So we're going to approve the base bid as it was submitted, but we're going to look at for that additional 20,000, can maybe change from 2 structures into 1. What they're going to run some numbers on is to see if it's 1 building, we would reduce the amount of T panels and potentially reduce the amount of work needed to be done, the subsoil or underground work. So by the time you add all those costs together, it might be more economical for us to change to 1 building instead of 2. So, but we do want to get Greystone on board so we can start working on the structure design. And it's not going to change whether it's 1 building or 2. Greystone's still the low option there. Conveying equipment. This is for the overhead crane. So 1 bid recommending that approval. Fire suppression. So this is the sprinkler system. Recommend hiring Viking Sprinkler for that. Once they're on board, we can start doing some design analysis of the water main looping. This is figuring in some costs of pumps and stuff that we might not need or can maybe be downsized. So hopefully this number goes down in the future and as we start working with the contractor.
Yeah, this was bid thinking that we weren't doing the loop system for the water main. So this bid should change, hopefully lower.
Yeah. Furnishing or the plumbing. So we have lots of bidders on this category, 7 bidders. So low bid was Hango Brothers. So recommend their approval. HVAC, again, lots of bidders. Recommend the low bid of Weezer or of Winona Controls. Electrical, Kish was the low bid there, so we recommend that approval. So overall, I don't know if you have the other spreadsheet to open up, Jeff.
There you
So
go.
put everything together and you look at from the schematic design phase cost to where we're currently at now. At this point, everything's been bid out. We have 2 categories where we didn't get any bidders, 2 categories we're recommending to hold back on approvals. But we do have the numbers, or pretty good numbers now. So I don't know if you want to go down to the second page, Jeff.
Yep, there's a second page there, shows the.
Yep. So the original estimate was at $6,185,000. With the bid results we've received now to date, it's $6,488,140. So it has gone up about $300,000. We're trying to see if we can make some changes to get a few things down a little bit lower. That does include $305,000 worth of contingencies. That's 5% of the construction cost. So assuming that there's no overrun, there's no changes, that 6.5 million goes down to about 6.2 million. So, hopefully we don't need to use that contingency. We can ultimately go down, not up. And then if you go to the next page, Jeff, that is for the bid work. There's also some costs that'll be done on the local side. We'll have our truck wash equipment that we're going to buy, and Weezer will install. The vehicle lift, at this point, we're going to try to go without that. We'll take that off this budget, and down the road we might need to have something for lifting the trucks up above and beyond the overhead crane. But we're going to attempt to do that without that. The brine equipment, again, that's a future cost if we decide to put in a brine maker in a building for that to house it. So again, that won't be a cost to be done immediately. Fuel equipment, want to get going on some discussion there. Hopefully that cost for 25,000 can go down depending on how we obtain equipment and how it's all set up. Has 120,000 in there for furnishings, fixtures, equipment, which includes about 20,000 for wiring of all the equipment for the computers and everything, and then 100,000 worth of furniture for desks, tables, chairs, all that type of stuff. We're going to start working with suppliers on that to figure out, what we're going to need to have there. That number seems high, but we've been told that's a pretty practical number we need to plan on. So we'll see where that goes. So that number could change. And then moving expenses, hopefully we don't have any moving expenses, that we can just move it all with our own staff to knock out that 20,000. So net, if you left all these numbers in there as are currently listed, comes into a total project cost, including furnishings, everything moved into the building, at $6,778,140. So we're above that, the initial desire of $6 million, but overall, I think we do have a good end product. So there were some overages with some costs in some areas that we didn't expect. So
The 6,778 includes the 305,000 contingency, right?
Right.
that
Yes.
includes the contingency and these owner direct costs. Yep. Jack,
All right. Does this number include the city or the county's cost for this looping?
No.
No. And we haven't got that quote yet, have we? We got an estimate, but
yeah, we have an estimate of 130,000 to be the county's, or no, I think it's 130,000 total
Total.
costs.
Total. Yeah.
But we do not have that. So at 2/3, that'll add another, just shy of 100,000.
Okay, now, if we approve what's requested today with a few exceptions, we can still make changes after approval?
Yes and no.
depends on what kind of changes you're asking, Jack.
Yeah, so you have, there's always there's best value changes that can be made. There are change orders and supplemental agreements that can be made. Essentially at that point we work with the contractor to decide what those changes are needed. Whether it's going up or down in price depending on what's needed out there. That's pretty common to have some changes, but they do need to be, fairly limited, fall within the scope of the original bid. So we can't go out there and bid something one way and then change 75% of that work. It needs to be something that's generally you look at less than 25% of the work can be changed of each item.
And that's why we tabled the asphalt, just because we wanted to take a closer look at that. Because
I have a question on the lockers. How would those be used?
Yes. So one is that you can have your employees put their belongings in there during the day. And then you also have the stuff after you're out there in the field with, your wet raincoats and boots and, muddy gear. You have a place to put your own stuff to hang and dry out. So, it might be, office employees putting their coat and their purse and other belongings in there so they're not by their desk all day. But then it's the equipment that someone has. Everyone has their own PPE equipment. They have their raincoats, their boots, all that type of stuff.
Okay, you're not renting any uniforms at this point.
Correct.
Okay, good. Well, those companies furnish lockers, but probably you're balancing one cost against another. So, okay, fine.
With regard to the contingency, I see also, in scrolling down through all the bids and whatnot, there's a fair amount of allowances in there that may not be needed as well, correct?
Yeah, there are some allowances in there that we could hopefully, cut out as you go through them. And the big allowances were the one that we talked about in that cast in place concrete. A couple of them we have allowances in there because there wasn't bids, but otherwise there's $10,000 allowance. There's a $20,000 allowance. So there's, I think, an additional $30,000 worth of allowances that we didn't talk about already. And then a couple items that we're just estimating still because of no bids on what those numbers are going to come in at.
Sure.
It's like that seeding and rock mulch allowance of 20,000. That's just a figure thrown out there. We could get together as on a weekend and do the rock if we'd like or whatever. But
Hey. One question.
11% sale.
yeah.
With regard to the asphalt part of it, how much in the bid package, how large, how much area, what were we looking at?
So the asphalt included most of the upper portion of the old portion of our highway site. It did not include the southwest portion of the property, but it included, the front parking area, the west side of the building with some parking and drive aisle. Included the east side of the building with the drive aisle, and then south of the building, between the main building and the rock shed, rock and salt. And included most of that was going to be asphalt as well. Some of it is for, you want your employees parking on pavement and not hauling sand and dirt into the office part as much as possible, driving the equipment around on pavement rather than going onto gravel and, tracking stuff into the building. And then you also have the issues with in front of the sand salt building. You need to have a place to dump your salt mixed material, push it into the hoop shed and stuff. And then with drainage and stuff as well. So we're going to look at, are there some areas that we can reduce that pavement? One of the areas that we can maybe do is on the east side of our site. Instead of having that paved, have a gravel drive aisle on that side. So we'll look at what that cost savings is. Is it worth to make that change? I don't know that we can go out there and just, knock out 50% of the paving. If you do that, then you're going to have going from the paved roads onto the gravel driveway just to drive the vehicles in. It might not make sense for the savings we'll get out of it. So
It did not include paving an extension of East South Street over to the parking across that 3 acres that we bought.
Nope, the 3 acres would, but the contractor is salvaging all the gravel off this site as they work. I envision a lot of that gravel is going to go onto the 3 acres and become a gravel storage area, but it won't be paved.
Okay, thank you.
I think our highway committee has done a very good job going through all these figures.
Absolutely.
Well, we're keeping a close eye on this stuff, and
You're doing a great job, both of you.
Well, as you've seen, it's I don't know what the word is, maybe fascinating, the range of bids on some of these, where somebody can bid almost $100,000 more than someone else. You just wonder, what are they looking at, but I think we came out pretty well in the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's encouraging to see that the bottom line here has dropped from 7.1 million to 6.7, and hopefully we can get that down lower with these owner direct costs too.
Right. Sounds good. You must need a motion to approve the bid package with minus those 4 items.
Except 32A and 90.
Yeah, there are 2 items, 32A and
9 Echo.
9.
90, I think it was, yeah.
Would you exclude the ones that didn't have bids too?
No, because there's no bid, so we're going to start looking for quotes or trying to figure out costs for that yet. So, but yeah, we're looking for a motion. And Teresa, you make a motion.
Motion to go with the bid as proposed minus the 2 areas that we need to investigate further.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and second. Is any further discussion?
I actually read through it all. I didn't have the minutes from Jeff, so I had time.
If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed with roll call.
All right. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
and District 5.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we'll move on to action item number 2. Consider approving rezoning request from Corey and Jackie Baker of Yucatan Township. And I've never seen Yucatan spelled like that, but that's fine.
That's all right.
Me neither.
I just had to throw that in there. But anyway,
Yeah, spell check even. I'd even missed that it was underlined in spell check. So yeah, there we go. Fixed.
all right. Aaron, are you on?
I am, yes. Good morning, commissioners.
Okay.
So this is a recommendation from the Planning Commission to amend the zoning district maps to reclassify an area approximately 9 acres in area from agricultural protection to residential. This area is near the Ferndale Golf Course. On one end and on the other end, it abuts some existing residential homes and residential districts. The Planning Commission has made a recommendation to approve this rezone with one condition, and that condition is that the rezoned area shall only contain 1 buildable lot unless a plat is approved under Section 36 of the zoning ordinance. So if essentially that means that if they want to create multiple lots or a subdivision, or what we would understand to be a subdivision, they would go through the process that's outlined in the ordinance for doing that. However, if they choose to simply build one home on the property as currently described, they could do that without undergoing a plat. Any questions on the recommendation?
One question. With regard to this, with the condition for a plat required, what happens if they build one house in one corner and then split? Can they do that?
The condition would say, well, I guess the ordinance would prevent them from doing that, like the ordinance prevents any splits from occurring without approval. However, we do not have a system to review splits before they occur. So in practice, yes, they could split it. However, if the split was for the purposes of a future zoning approval, that would need to come through this office, and we would harken back to this condition on this rezone that says a plat's required for more than 1 buildable. So we would be able to withhold a zoning permit for a future home there. However, we would not be able to prevent them from creating multiple parcels.
Do you want to make that a condition, Bob?
It was just a question, I'm looking at somebody trying to circumvent I don't know how you'd put that into the motion.
I think that the condition the planning commission has recommended, it was their intention to essentially achieve what you're describing, saying that they only have one buildable lot unless they go through a plat.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. I think it's a great use as far as the site and a nice spot for some homes if they go through the platting process. That said, and based on the zoning board's recommendation, I'd make a motion to approve the rezoning with that one condition in place.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? Greg seconds it. Any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed with roll call.
District 1.
Yes.
District 2.
Yes.
District 3.
Yes.
District 4.
Yes.
And District 5.
Yes.
5 yeses, approved.
Thank you, Aaron.
Before you leave, Aaron, I wanted to ask you about putting on the planning commission on the agenda for the next one about changing the 50-foot to 10 and then 2 houses per 40. We were talked about that. When can we change that? Or how do we go about it?
Yeah, I know we've discussed this a couple times. Your typical process would be the amendments to a zoning ordinance would follow the updating of the comprehensive land use plan. So as I understood that, that's been, I'm no longer administering that comprehensive plan project. I think Jeff.
Well, we don't have to change the approve a new comprehensive land use plan to change ordinances. It's done all the time.
Correct. I guess I'll restate if I misstated that. Your typical process would be your comp plan, follow your official controls, your zoning ordinances, follow your comp plan. So if my understanding was that we did an initial survey as part of the comprehensive land use plan update, and Commissioner Myrie's desire is to use some information gathered during that survey to change the setbacks required in the ag district. So I guess my answer to you would be your typical process would be your comprehensive land use plan would be updated, and then your ordinance would change, reflecting the desired outcomes and goals of that comprehensive land use plan.
Is that your intent, Greg? You're basing your results off that survey? I guess I didn't.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people put a lot of time into that, and I don't think we should just ignore it. I think we should look at it.
Well, it wasn't the survey per se. It was the committees. It was the committees that were meeting. I think there was like 4 or 5. But that's another thing we need to readdress is that's been in a stall mode here since COVID in March. So to start it up again on this comprehensive land use. But as far as the setback, I don't think that needs to be.
I don't think so either.
It needs to be addressed because of a comp plan. I think that can be addressed at any time through the planning commission. The two house for 40, that's a different story maybe, but the setback, that could be addressed at any time.
When do you want to do that? The next planning commission?
I guess it's a matter of if you want to tackle it broadly with the comp plan and then tackle the ordinance or piecemeal changes in the ordinance.
Well, like I said
First.
before, we change ordinances all the time throughout the years. I mean, it doesn't hinge on the comp plan.
Yeah, I think there have been 10 or so ordinance updates since the 60s. The setback has been 50 feet since 1969, so that hasn't swung around in any way. It's been that same setback for
Well, my suggestion is well, Greg, you're on the planning commission. I think that should be discussed at your next meeting. Just my thoughts. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but
What are we trying to accomplish here? I guess I need a,
Right now, Jack, there's a 50-foot setback from the property lines, and they want to change it to 10 because of some of these family farm splits that they got to tear down buildings and stuff because they're within the 50 feet. They'd like it to go to 10. That's the main thing about that. So,
or there's been a lot of variances for 20-foot variances, just because of the 50-foot thing. So 50-foot rule. So if you change it. Yeah, if you change it to 10 feet, that would eliminate a lot of these variance issues.
Yeah, I agree. That was an issue with our neighbors putting up a solar farm. Our building is 30 feet away from their line, and they had to go through a variance.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
Just help everybody, I think.
Even if you looked at it from a 20-foot point of view, I mean, if you got 10 foot from the property line, I only look at it from a fire protection point of view. If you've got two buildings 20 feet apart,
Well, the only reason I was using the 10-foot is because of all the cities use pretty
Right.
much. But that's why I use that. I mean,
Yep.
set in stone, but I figure if they can use it 10 feet in town and not worry about fires, I don't think we have to worry too much out in the country. But whatever.
just a thought.
So that will be an item for discussion at our next planning commission meeting. Greg, you'll bring that up to discuss, and from there, the planning commission could direct my office to prepare some language for future consideration. Is that what the board is thinking?
Yeah,
Yep.
we could just put it on the agenda so we can go at it.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, I guess we'll move on to, I think that's all for action items, isn't there, Jeff? Or you got something else?
No, that's all for action items right now.
well, I have a question, whether this is, the letter to Jan
Well,
Malcolm.
Oh,
Yeah, let's
did you
bring
wanna-
that up.
Do you want an official vote on that? Or I guess by consensus, we're looking to respond. Bring that up and
Has
I will
everybody
get
had a
that.
chance? Has everybody had a chance to read that letter?
it was a good letter.
Very good.
John, are you still on?
Mhm.
I am.
Oh,
Have you read that letter?
I did read the letter, yes.
Are you okay with that?
I think it states it very well.
Okay.
I share the board's disappointment in both the response as well as the timeliness of response. So I think I support it fully.
good.
Well, I think if we all have a consensus here to forward that letter on to the Jan, and also I would like to send it to AMC and the governor too. So,
Yeah.
is everybody in agreement with that?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Yep, I was going to try and get it out on letterhead yesterday, so I will have it on letterhead and in the mail today.
All right. Thank you.
Put your
Thanks.
put your stamp to work again.
Yeah.
I hope there's some response or just acknowledgement that, we're partners. We're not at odds with the state, and so I appreciate the letter that you guys put out.
Thank-
Yeah. Thank you, Jack, for
Mhm.
helping craft that. So, we can't let this go because I feel bad for what Eitson went through in their slanderous story at first there. So I think they deserve an apology. I really do.
I
Yeah.
agree.
All right. Administrator updates.
All right. I already mentioned Mr. Twite's retirement. We have a workshop scheduled for the 8th of December. that will be a budget-focused workshop. We had a good discussion of the Finance Committee this morning. And maybe Bob can go through some of that with us. But we'll be able to go through that in greater detail on the 8th of December. Something to keep in mind, we have of course, we don't have settled agreements yet with the unions on salary changes or any other union requests, that is.
You
We
do
also
or don't have anything?
Don't. We have, I mean, the 49ers we've got
That's settled.
that settled with them, but the rest of them are not settled.
I haven't heard anything from Tess on where we're sitting on that as far as getting together on this.
Yeah, she is working on arranging those. So, yep.
Okay.
And she's not. I thought I saw her on here earlier. She's not on at the moment to chime in with dates. So, but just a couple things that we'll discuss on the 8th. Of course, we do have a number of employees that are not on the union, so that'll be typically we follow what the union agreements are with them. But the other category is the other elected officials, and so we'll give them a chance to address the board at the workshop with their salary requests if they have one. And again, that will be prior to the TNT meeting scheduled for the evening on the 8th of December. So I think everybody's aware the TNT notifications have gone out. We've had a couple. La Crescent had their meeting last night. We did unfortunately have a couple of their values that were changed by the local board in La Crescent that weren't properly reflected in the system, and so we're working with La Crescent to verify all those changes have been properly incorporated. And, the one specifically for the hotel, we did recompute. We won't recompute every one of them per se, but that one we did recompute for them since it's a significant change.
So you're gonna go ahead.
That's a significant reduction in value for the hotel, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Primarily affects the TIF district, not a big effect on county and city tax, but that TIF district had a big effect. Yeah.
Teresa, you had something?
Jack, Cindy asked if you went to the meeting last night.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I talked with Cindy at length yesterday on the phone, and I saw nothing that I was going to contribute that they hadn't already made decisions on.
Okay.
So what was the problem with the error? Why wasn't that computed in the TNT?
Good question. A former employee said it was done, and apparently it wasn't. So, addressing that. And I've asked Cindy to review all the rest of the changes to make sure the rest of them are in the system. So I haven't gotten an answer back on that yet. Commissioner Burns, you want to add anything from the Finance Committee this morning, or you want to?
Sure.
Okay.
We had a special finance meeting this morning to discuss the budget. Talked about numerous line items and whatnot. As it stands right now, and we've still got things to look at, but as it stands right now, we could drop the budget from the 3% proposed to a 2%. And that 2% would not take anything out of current budget reserves or budget surplus that's carryover. The CARE fund monies that are being used to offset wages and expenses as far as payroll, tentatively it's about $200,000. That will not carry forward because we took $419,000 out of the reserve last year to balance this year's, the 2020 budget. So it'll help reduce what we took from last year's. If we do a 2% increase, it does not take into consideration the wage increases that may or may not be negotiated with the unions. So what I would propose is that, and we're still looking at line items and whatnot, but I would anticipate that if we did a 2% increase instead of the 3%, and then when we got done with negotiations as far as the unions, any effect that those would have on the 2021 budget would come out of the reserve or the surplus. Now, I know that in talking to Carol, she anticipated that a 1% increase amounted to something like $94,000, so a little less than 1%. So I don't think we can go to 0. I don't think it's wise to go to a 0, only from the perspective that if you cut yourself short now, you're going to end up having to pay for it at some point in time. 2%'s, I think, a reasonable number. And with our increase in tax capacity, the 2% is actually not, the tax capacity covers most of the 2% anyways. But
Depends.
what we run into the snag is the change in valuations.
Yep.
That's the phone calls I've been getting, and I think you guys have too.
Yep.
With regard to especially rural changes in valuations as far as the woodland.
Is there any way we can change that or lower it a little bit so it wouldn't be such a big deal on them, and then we could always go up in a year, keep a little going up every year? Greg Davis thought we could drop it to 1,600. That'd be the lowest that he thought we should dare go. It's at 22, I think, right now on the Green Acres. And that's something to consider. Because we can't go back to 1,100, but he said we could 1,600.
Well,
Increase it some years down the road too. So just a thought.
if we could do that, Greg, I would like to do that. But from what I've been told, that we cannot do that.
Well, I'll give Greg Davis another call, see what he says. You know, that's what he told me one time, but that could have changed by now too. So who knows?
Is there any chance that I can add to that?
Please.
I understand your concern. I can tell you that one of my properties went up 112% because of it. It's not like I'm targeting any one group. I'm in that too. These are all off of sales studies. Had this been increased slowly through the years, we would not be in this situation. It started off at 500,000 an acre, or 500 an acre. It went up to 1,000 an acre, and it should have increased up to 2,500 an acre through the years. It didn't. We got it corrected now, and going forward, I don't see any changes this year for that. My sales right now look at about exactly at like 100%. They are right on. Going to Greg Davis isn't going to help because the legislation, they give us the laws, the state give us the laws that we have to follow. I work with the state in determining the values. We went over this many times with the state trying to find out the best way. We determined that value when we looked at counties west of us that didn't have the influx of hunting, the big woods. And we looked at what they sold their acreage for, and that's what we used to be able to say, if we didn't have the outside interest on hunting, what would the woods be worth? And that's what it was worth. Yeah, it hurts people, but you know what? It also helps people. The ones that were paying that over the years that shouldn't have are now back in line to what taxes they probably should have paid. It skews one way and then it skews the other. It's cyclical around the tax system. One group cries or pushes for some changes, and then we make a change, and then another group is at the bottom end and they push for a change, and then a change comes, and then another group is at the bottom end. This is just how the system works. And unfortunately, I was one of the ones that got burned this year. But it should have been done through the years where it was not as noticeable. But
Well, that's the thing. It should have been done in slower increments, not bam, 120% in 1 year. That's
well,
where people get upset.
Why couldn't we went to 1,500?
It had to be caught up. It had to be caught up to our neighbors.
Well, Winona's still at 1,300, so
Yeah, well, you can talk to Steve, and he will tell you he probably should have moved it up too. That's what he's told me.
My question then is this. Is it, what are we set at 22 or 21?
We tax at 25, we value at 29.
it's 2,200 on the rural preserve, correct? That's what you're getting at, Bob?
Yeah. The rural preserve went up from, was it 11 to 20?
It went from 1,000 to 2,200.
Actually, it went from 16 to 25.
Huh?
Sorry, 1,000 to, yeah, 1,000 to 25.
The question is, it's set right now at 25 then, if that's the number that we're talking about. Are we as a board able to go back and reduce it, say, to 2,000? Just
No.
as a number? Or is it already set and that's done?
It was set last spring.
Who said it?
As of July 1, it was certified. There's nothing that anyone can do about it.
Well, who set the price back then?
Who did? What was that question?
Who come up with the 2,500 back then?
Myself and my CO from the Department of Rev. We went through all of this in April, May, and June of last year. We had people calling the state. We had people calling other counties. We had people calling Greg Davids. We had people calling other commissioners. We had people calling all over trying to find out if they could change it, and there was no way it could be changed.
So we approved it and it's locked in stone.
We didn't approve nothing. This is done by the assessors. So I mean,
Why wouldn't you guys approve something like that before it was done?
Because the thing is this is determined off of sales studies. The Department of Revenue had asked for a couple of years for us to make that change. And we finally made it last year. I worked with the department on this. The department CO and myself came up with what's the best way that we can defend that value, and that's what we did. We looked at other counties that did not have the woods influence of hunting, and we took their value, and that's what this is supposed to be. This was supposed to be a program that helped the farmers between what the real value would have been without the outside influence and what the influence made. And you're supposed to have a reduction of that amount. That amount is the difference between the 2,500 and the 2,900, not 1,000 and 2,900. That was artificially low, and it hurt everybody who wasn't in that group. Because if I don't pay the taxes, Teresa, you're paying the taxes for that, or Bob, you're paying those taxes.
well,
To get it fair and equitable.
I've had a discussion with the Department of Rev about this, and this is what that program was for, is to help the farmers keep their chunk of woods on their property.
Exactly.
And but the fact is that it's been raised from 1,000 to 2,500, which is only 400 shy of the actual value. It's going to force these people to have to sell off their woods because they can't afford to pay the taxes on it anymore, and that's unfortunate. That's going away from what that program was for and what the legislature's intent for that was for. And I've argued with the Department of Rev about that, and of course I didn't get anywhere. But it's a difference of opinion on what that is for. But I think we need to re-examine that and because people are upset about, there's older couples that have chunks of woods and they're just flabbergasted. They don't know what they're going to have to sell, and it's unfortunate.
Eric, there's something I'd like to say is that wasn't put into effect to give anybody a break more than what was supposed to be. If woods would have gone for 2,500 if there wasn't a hunting influence and the hunting influence brought them to 29, then the 2,500 is where it should be taxed. The fact that it hadn't been raised for 15, 20 years in the past doesn't make it right. This makes it right. It's where that value would be if there was not an outside influence. And
But the thing is that people don't own these woods to sell it. They own it, to keep it. And I understand that you have to put a value on it and what it's worth. I get that. I understand that. But when people own this stuff, these woods, they own it to own it. They don't own it to sell it.
Well, I'm in that bunch too. I had 112% increase. I knew I was going to have an increase, but right is right. I will also say that the Department of Revenue makes it very clear that we do not look at what the tax result will be. We look at what is fair and equitable across the board to every taxpayer.
And I think we as Houston County should look at what is fair for us as a county and as for our residents. But I mean, I'm not going to argue this all day long, but I've gotten over a dozen calls of upset people, but there's no resolution to it. But the fact is that there's this increase on the woods. So where is it decreasing to? I mean, if the farmers are, my taxes went up $1,800. And this is all preliminary too. And I've told people this too, that this is all preliminary levies that we're talking here on the schools, the county, townships. That could change in the final. So, but where on the other end is this going to relieve someone's taxes?
Well, I can't tell you exactly where, but if you just look at how the system is set up, you get X amount of dollars, whether you're the city, the county, the school district, or whatever. If I pay more, somebody else is paying less. That's just a fact. So if I'm paying more because I'm supposed to pay more, then somebody else gets a relief. Maybe it's a few dollars, maybe it's $50, maybe it's $100. It all depends. But the same thing goes, you may not notice you're getting it because levies go up. School districts go up, things like that. Had the levies all stayed the same across the board for everybody, you maybe would notice it.
Well, that's where I think we need to do our best here as a county to try to keep, and going back to what Bob brought up about, I'd like to see it at zero. Especially during this COVID year and everything else, people are hurting out there, and we need to find a ways, if it means to dipping into reserves that we have, that we've taxed from previous years, so be it. I think we need to look at that seriously, because it's only fair to try to find some relief here somewhere down the line.
Eric?
Yep.
Yeah. I would agree with what you just said, to try to get it to zero, but I would also add that the phone calls you're getting, I'm getting the phone calls from the people, and I've mentioned this before, have lived on Shore Acres for 30 years. One lady called yesterday, her value went up $75,000. And she said, we haven't done anything. We haven't changed a thing in our house for a number of years. And the fact of the matter is that people have built some $1 million homes, and then those who, just like the people with the woods, they aren't living here because they want to sell it and move. They're living here because they've lived here for 30 years and they love it. And it's a sad commentary on how this shakes out, because forcing people to make a decision that's life-changing, and it shouldn't happen.
I agree with you 100% on that. And I think that we should look at another thing too while we're looking at this. We have a city right now that we're looking at that might have to get another increase. They had an increase 2 years ago, a big one. And the reason isn't anything more than interest rates are low. This city has a lot of lower valued homes. Right now, you can't even get one on the market. It's usually gone before it gets on the market. Those values are going through the roof. when they go through the roof. We have to, because of the way the sales system is worked out throughout the state, we have to increase values.
You have to?
Have to. That's why we do our sales study. We have to be between 90 and 105% every year.
So Houston's going to be up again for another increase?
I didn't say Houston, but yeah, it looks like it could happen. And I can do nothing about it. It's the law. It's the way the system is. It's an ad valorem system.
So what's the percentage you're at on Houston then, right now?
I don't want to say because it's not final. It's not like last
Well,
year.
it doesn't mean you have to be 100%, right?
No, I can be between 90 and 105, but if I'm at 70, it takes a little bit to get to 90. I have to be nothing less than 90, or they'll give me a.
So we're at 70, is that what you're
No,
saying?
I said if it were at 70. I'm not.
Well,
saying,
I find it hard to believe we're at 70, so.
I'll tell you what, it's not far off.
Well, another
Numbers, because they're not in front of me right this minute.
issue in La Crescent that I'll mention, that people, I've tried to explain to people, we're paying almost $2,000 in school taxes.
Yep.
And I'm a big supporter of education, but I'm looking for a whole bunch of Einsteins coming out with what we're spending on schools right now.
I think we're gonna get to a zero budget if we're gonna go and apply for $3.5 million bond, and then raising taxes and going for a $3.5 million bond ain't gonna look very good.
No, it doesn't. I think we need to. That'll be up for further discussion down the road, but I think a $3.5 million bond is a little high myself.
Well, I think we need to have a closed door meeting and discuss some of this stuff.
Well, I don't know if it needs to be a closed session because it's public information, but what Cindy said as far as residential structures, the state mandates, and we got in trouble for this in the past, the state mandates that you have to be between the 90 and 105%.
I get that.
A few years ago, you look at the city of La Crescent, and this is going to be what's happened to Shore Acres. You couldn't buy a house unless it was, I mean, houses were selling 30 and 35% higher than the estimated market value. A house that was valued at $300,000 was selling for $375,000. The valuations had to be brought up to reflect what market values were. Same thing in Caledonia. The house that we had prior to this, house values in Caledonia were going up, took an 11% increase. They weren't quite as far off as La Crescent, but you know, every city, and there's a lot of people moving right now because of the interest rates, and people are asking a higher amount and getting it for their houses, and you have to bring it up to what the market value is. Now, in the future,
But you don't have to be at 100 or 105, Bob.
over 90 or over.
Right. What I'm saying is you don't have to be at 100 or 105. You could be at
Right.
90.
You could be at 90,
Right.
but you got to be above 90.
I get it.
So, you know,
You also have to look at, oh, go on, Bob, I'm sorry.
I'm not going to get into too big an argument. Like Eric said, we could talk about this for a long time.
We could, but I will say that it's not really prudent to go to the 90 when you see the increases going, because you could do a 90 this year knowing that the trend is going up and have to do a 20 or 25 next year. You want to try to get to the 70 or the 93 to 97%, not 90, just because the trend is going up. That's all I have to say.
And when the trend goes down,
Then you go down.
You can lower it. You can lower it.
well, I'm looking at this as a board, what we can do. And that only thing that we got control over is the levy. So
Right.
I think we really should look hard at trying to keep this at zero if we can. That's all I have to say about that. But
And we've got me, talking to Carol yet this week about other things, and other things that can affect the budget. But to get to zero, I think we're going to have to, like you said, Eric, take out of the reserve. If we go to zero and I mean, we're going to short ourselves on some of these funds that, that we're not going to be able to provide the service that we're anticipating. So I think to get to zero, we're going to have to use some of the reserves, plus the fact that we haven't got the contract settled yet. So I don't know what's going to happen there.
Well, and that's frustrating too, because we're way behind on negotiations here. So, and I would like to have some knowledge of where we're headed on that, but we're not in that position right now. But we should feel fortunate enough that we have a reserve that we could use. And I understand that you don't want to dip into that every year. I get that. But if there's any a year to do it, it sure would be this year.
And we got to remember that we have to maintain, I think it's a 40% or a 45% of levy to offset that.
Would that threaten the 40% rule, Carol?
It's actually a board decision. There's a recommendation that you're between 40 and 65%. We can also look at our cash flow. It's unrealistic for Road and Bridge to be required to do that when we get all of our maintenance money in at the beginning of the year. So they basically come January end up adding to their cash reserves. So it's kind of it's a recommendation, it's a GASB thing, but it has to fit your county also.
Right.
Well, we don't know about the CARES Act. That might carry over for another half a year. We might get more money, we might not. How do we know?
Well, you're not figuring in that CARES Act at all on your budget here, are you, Bob?
The CARES money that we're using, like offsetting payroll and whatnot, will reduce this year's expenses, so it would go back into the reserve.
Right.
We're not figuring it for next year's levy.
No.
It's just this year's reserve would go back up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's easy enough to take the 2% out of reserves. I'd still like the opportunity to look at other expenses and see what else we can cut.
Well, we would all be in agreement on that, I believe.
Well, this is all subject to discussion next Tuesday.
Well, we got a good start on it right now.
Yes, we do.
I don't know if everybody's gotten this report that Donna sent out on the pooled cash. I don't know if anybody want to discuss any of that or go through that, or
Maybe wants to explain it to us.
Donna, are you on? Or
And Jeff, can you pull that up on your screen, please?
Yep, can do. Working on that. All right, there you go. It's on the first tab.
All right. Yeah, Greg was wondering at one of the last meetings how many CDs we had left. And I highlighted the CDs on the side, the far left. And then the very bottom of the screen, you can see, actually I can see it right now. Excuse me, the totals of CDs are listed right down. Those are the current amounts we have active right now that have not been cashed. So they are still going and still earning interest. And then if you scroll up a little bit, Jeff. Okay, then I wanted you guys to for sure see the Eitzen ESB special account. Right now it's at $6,565,000. So that's what we have in that account. That's definitely liquid cash. If you scroll up a little bit more, scroll up. Okay, and then we've got the Raymond James. The first group of Raymond James are the bonds I have left. These bonds, pretty good rate shed actually. They don't get called, but the CDs up above here, like the Wells Fargo, the Raymond James, we've been multi-bank security. They've been calling a lot of those CDs. I just as they do get called, I pretty much just cash them in for the most part. Eitzen State Bank, if you scroll a little bit more on the top, the bright green there, those, of course, will not get called at all. So the due dates you see there are the due dates that they will go on, continue earning the interest that you see listed. So basically, they got some good rates there. Like I said, we kind of wanted to cash in CDs anyway. So, I got a couple, some good rates, and then the brokers would say, well, this has a call period of whatever the first call period is, like 6 months from now, and likely will get called. But, we got a good interest rate while it lasted, and now it's called, and that's kind of what we wanted to do anyway. So that's how it stands right now. And I'll just pretty much keep cashing them in because the interest rates in purchasing new CDs are not that great. We pretty much 5 years is about 0.3, 0.25, 0.3. So you can't get any good rates at all right now on anything.
Yeah.
And I'm getting the 0.6 from ESB Banking. ESB Banking money market there is still getting 0.6 right now today, which is really pretty good, really good. So other than that, it's kind of a dead market investing. But any questions?
So right now we got $21,370 between cash on hand and CDs and money markets.
Yep, that was as of November 25th, and like I said in my email, we just did settlement yesterday. So that was what, Jeff, 4,700,000 for the settlement for the taxes. So you have to subtract that off of there and whatever else happens in between now and then. So yeah, that was as of the 25th last week. That includes all the investments, yes. For general revenue.
So
those investments, go back to that, Jeff. Those investments are the like you see on the top there, you got the road and bridge, human services, and some of the technical funds for the recorder's office, and soil and water, which is not really ours. And I know Carol has mentioned we should probably even take them off, but I like to have them on there just so I can kind of keep good track of them. Then the collaborative of 50,000. So those are the other investments that we don't include with our general revenue. And that, of course, like you see, the road and bridge has those 2 certificates with multi-bank yet, and the Eitzen State Bank certificates as well. So that is separate from the first page that you looked at.
So out of the road and bridge, is that where the new buildings money is coming from?
It's up to you guys.
Yep, it is.
Whatever you guys want.
Well, there was always this talk of that we had 5.2 million set aside. Is that still at that figure? Or Carol, do you know that? Or Bob?
The 5.2 is actually the fund balance, which isn't necessarily the cash balance, the way it's reflected there through the investments and the cash balance. But yeah, their fund balance at the end of last year, wasn't it?
5.4.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be higher than that at the end of this year.
5.7 probably.
5.7, someplace in that neighborhood. But you got to leave them something in there to pay debt on the projects that we've got that we do, and we pay the contractor before the state pays us. So that's
Yep, no, I understand that. I understand
that. We need a couple $1 million. That's why I figured, if we took 3.5 out of the highway department and
And not actually typically. Typically Sheila gets the money for the projects prior to, she gets it as soon as we can. We may not have even made payments to contractors. So part of the cash balance that you have now most likely reflects some of that money that we've gotten from the state and not paid to the contractors.
Yeah, we still owe money.
Got a liability.
Right. But they really, as soon as they let a project, they go and get the money and we get it in our books rather than leaving it at the state.
But
Well,
that-
Go ahead, Bob.
That 5.7 or whatever the dollar amount is in the fund balance includes some of the liability that they owe on
Well,
completed projects.
Sheila had indicated that at the end of end of last year, there really wasn't much project money still remaining there because they had pretty much finished out their projects last year. Some years we've had $2 million that was carried over, but then again, the fund balance showed $7 million. But this has been more of an even. The end of 19 was more of an even. That was the money that we had in our fund balance, not including project money.
Okay.
What I'd like to see, and I'm just thinking out loud here, is on a bond for the highway shop that we can pay that bond in a 15-year payout with the money that we get from the wheelage tax.
And that's pretty much how it was set up, using that wheelage tax revenue as kind of the payment.
Yep.
That was in there. So that has been pretty much the plan.
Right. So what would that wheelage tax support for bond? $2 million, more than that, or I don't know. I guess I never figured that out. But
200,000 a year.
it's 200, and it's actually more than that.
The 3.5 million, taking 3.5 million from reserve basically, and spending bonding for 3.5.
And the wheelage tax would support the 3.5?
I believe so, Jeff. I
think so. I'd have to go back and find the numbers. I'll pull that out.
It's very close.
Yep.
Right. Looking at the 3 million, the annual payment would be around 228 would be about the highest that it would be.
At 3 million or 3.5?
That was at 3.
3? Okay.
And what has the wheelage tax been coming in at?
200.
100-ish. Yep. Yeah, here's one line in Bruce's emails. We estimate the annual debt service of roughly $225,000 in the 3 million scenario and roughly 300,000 in the 4 million scenario with the interest rates then. But the interest rates are even a little lower from when that email was put together.
Well, if we're going to build at 6.5 million using that number, because I think we're close to that. If it's 6.5 and we take 3.5 out and bond for 3, the wheelage tax pretty darn close covers it.
And does
And
that cover?
we're talking the current wheelage tax, not adding the additional $10.
No, that's what I want. I don't want to add to that either. But and that includes the fee or the cost of bonding, correct? The 50,000 or whatever.
Correct. That's all factored in.
Yep.
That's all factored in. All right. Well, I mean, this is something we need to look into further just to get it finalized, but that's why we have these discussions. So.
So at 3
One-
million,
one-
228,000 payback, correct?
A little less.
A little less? Okay, 3 1/4?
Interest rates are down a little bit.
Thank you.
I don't want you to think that this 3 million is anything to sneeze at either. That was,
No, it's not.
I'll
So-
throw you,
The budget on the building this morning was higher than 6 million.
Yeah, it was, well, I think Bob said 6.5, but it's at 6.8 right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the possibility of some lower, some,
Some lower, but you never know. We might run into but
oh, because of the contingency also.
well, that's figured in. That's the 6.8 is the figuring in the contingency and all that. So, well, actually, I'm wrong. Yeah,
Well, no,
I am.
it was 300,000 on the contingency and about 290,000 on the county expense list, of which
The direct cost.
the owner direct
cost.
costs, which we think would be, we can do.
Reduce. Yeah, we could reduce 90,000 right away off that, but yeah, 6.78, and that's including the 290 direct costs. So,
and the 305.
and the 305 contingency. Yep.
We could get down to that 645 pretty easy.
Well, just got to cross our fingers and hope we don't find something, a snag here and there, but yeah.
We are going to add 100,000 for that water line.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, was that 100,000?
It's 90 something.
Yeah, call it 100.
And if that was just an estimate on the cost, it could come in less, it could come in more too. So 130,000 estimate.
Right.
But that's going to save us money, hopefully on the. It should save us on the fire system. So. Well, let's move on.
I'm going to throw one caveat in there too. In District 9, AMC District 9, the county's in our district. We're the only one that doesn't have a county sales tax.
Well, that's because I think Teresa, you brought this up several times. Most of we're out of county shopping, and we don't want to penalize our local economy here with the sales tax.
Personally, I don't, the people that go out of county to shop are going to go whether we got a 0.5% added on sales tax for the county or not.
But we don't want to hurt our local businesses either by having a sales tax added on to them.
This would help lower their taxes, so it's a tit for tat, okay.
Does it though? That's their sales. That's the sales aspect of that. Oh, this is lower your taxes, but usually it just absorbs. So.
I know it's something nobody wants to. I just threw it in there. It isn't going to happen. I don't think.
We can have a discussion on that closer to when we have to make that decision. But that, over the last 10 years, that's what I've heard from every business, small business around. I mean, we don't have any big industries in Houston County.
Yeah.
I think the estimate out of the Department of Revenue would be about a $400,000 revenue to the county.
Yep. I just threw it out there, that's all. Moving on, I'm sorry.
Well, let's move on to commissioner reports. Bob, you want to continue with what you've already started?
No, we talked about finance. We know where we're talking about, so that's all I wanted to report on.
Okay, Greg.
That's pretty much it. When I talked over this morning, he pretty much hit on everything. And let's see, I didn't have any meetings that I can think of, so that's about all I got. Zoning, hope we get that going in the right direction.
Yep. Jack?
really nothing other than the highway department meeting that we had and passed this morning. I do have a question though. I just got something on my phone here from Maria Mueller, proposing a new time for a Houston County Highway Department facility progress meeting.
That's Friday, isn't it?
Well, who is she?
She's, I just got the same thing. She's with Weezer Brothers, so she's just setting up yeah, we're kind of switching from a planning meeting to a construction progress meeting format.
Oh, okay.
So it's just the extension of those invites.
Yeah, it was going to be for Friday morning.
Yep.
Yeah, I was confused. I didn't know who she is.
Anything else, Jack, or is that it?
No, that's in there.
Okay, Teresa?
The only meeting I had along with the rest of you, except Eric, was a joint board of health, and Bob's our new chair for the next year from Houston County. And so I think we have to also make a decision on the 15th agenda. Did we get any applications for Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment? We have to fill that position by the end of the year. We get anything, Jeff, that you know of?
I will have to check on that. Not that I know of, but I'll check on that.
Because that should be on the next. And has Dewey gotten a county email yet? The only reason I ask is because a committee meeting this morning, Aaron had some discussion about Crescent Hills and some of the developments up there. And he's very much involved in that because he was town chairman when that was all developed. And I would send it to him if he has a county email.
Okay. I don't think we've set up a county email for him yet, but I will talk to Andy and we'll get that.
We'll have to have a transition process here, huh?
Yeah, we'll get that going. Yeah. He did stop by yesterday and I chatted with him a little bit. Extended an invite for the AMC conference on 7th of December. And AMC has invited him to the Commissioner 101 training and stuff. So I'll work with him on getting that set up. So AMC likes to invite the commissioner-elects as well to the annual conference.
And they
We
also
typically haven't taken them when it's been a travel conference, but since it's a virtual meeting, I threw them on there.
Okay.
And they still put on the new commissioner meeting or meetings too, don't they?
Yes, yeah. And
Great.
So that's set up in January. We'll be doing it remotely, but it's I think a few hours each day, multiple day. So we'll get him set up with that. And just to confirm, Commissioner Myrie, you have not attended that yet, correct?
Nope.
All right. So we'll get you added on there as well.
Bob, did you ever go to that? I didn't think Bob did either.
I didn't think so either. So that was the other one I was going to check. So I will set up both of you for attendance on that as well.
You can tell that Bob didn't go to that. But
Thank you, Jack.
just kidding.
It's a mute point by now. So he was brought up. He's brought up in the school of hard knocks here. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's basically what I've had.
Okay. And all I had is I had a Root River 1 watershed meeting here last week. Nothing new to really report. Just changed a little bit of the language in the bylaws. It was held via Zoom and it was not the best. Dwayne is our chair and he kept getting thrown off. So it's kind of frustrating, but we made it through and nothing really new to report on that. We're approaching our last year and then the next in 2022 we'll start all over on funds again and allocating, and they want us to do a review of how, because we were one of the first watershed entities put together, and they wanted us to do a review of how we felt it went and anything changes we'd like to see. So we're going to work on that. And then this week we got meetings too, right, Teresa? We have extension.
We have extension meeting Thursday night.
Yep, and I got a water plan in Thursday morning. So.
And I'm on the Winona Water Board now, so I start that next week too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also had I wanted to bring this up to all of you. I've had a discussion with Marcia Ward a couple times on, as you know, on their jail project, and the fact that we're approaching. We did a 1-year extension on the contract with Winona County, and she wants to know if, what are we going to do when that no longer comes into play as far as having a contract and the revenue. And I said, well, that's something that we need to discuss as a board. And they're still struggling. Well, they're not really struggling. They got a majority that wants to build that jail, but the juvenile part of it, that's been talked about a lot. I guess it's not as easy as one would think as far as having a juvenile facility. There's a lot of cost and expense to that. So that's an ongoing discussion, but there is definitely a need, but whether that can be fulfilled. I mean, Olmsted County dropped theirs just because they could not afford to keep it going. And if Olmsted County can't do it,
Right.
yeah, can other counties take this on? I mean, could we take it on as a county? I don't know. Do we want to take it on? But you have to have, female jailers and male jailers and.
Yeah, I don't know that we could take it on, Eric, but with losing Winona's prisoners, we could have a real crisis with our jail population. To operate a facility that is expandable to 80 with maybe 8 or 10 people in it, just I don't know how to justify that.
Yeah, well, that's something we need to look at here in the future. When we lose that revenue, that's going to impact our budgets. So,
Yeah.
As far as the juvenile deal, there is a reason that we would call Greg Davids and Jeremy Miller as far as some of funding from the state in order to provide at least the cost of the construction. I've written to him on that regard.
so anyway, that's all I've got, I guess. If there's anything else that anybody would like to add, or
2 questions.
yeah.
One is for Jeff. Have we done any contacting as far as the bonding for this new building?
Yeah, we've had a couple of discussions with Bruce Ellers in the past, and I will set up and see if he's available to talk to the board on either next week on the 8th or on the 15th.
Okay.
If we could get them next week, that'd be great.
That MCIT meeting that's coming up, is that for everybody or just one of us?
I think Jack was our person on the MCIT board,
Okay, so it's just the one person.
just one,
Yeah.
like a policy meeting.
Yeah.
I see the invitation and I don't understand if it's all of us or just one of us. So, okay. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you. Need a motion to adjourn?
If there's no closing public comment,
I don't see anybody.
okay. Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
There's Greg seconded. Any further discussion? If not, we all can say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I see 5 ayes.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
11:25. Have a good day, everyone.
I see 10.